Okay, so Chris, thank you very much for joining today at the Good Builders program on the workshop. So yeah, please, whenever you are ready, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit and let us know a little bit about what you're gonna be doing today, please just go ahead.
All right, great, cool. Well, good morning, everyone, or at least good morning for me. I'm Chris Carella. I'm the co-founder of Scout Game. Scout Game is an open on-chain community that turns open source contributions into play. And so today I'm gonna present about Scout Game. I'll show it. I'll talk about how it works, and then with any remaining time, I'll talk about contributing to open source best practices. And if anyone's interested, we can get into if you're a repo maintainer, best practices for that. So first, I just want to say thank you, GoodDollar. Thank you for having me today, and thank you for your partnership. You've been a sponsor of Scout Game for the last 9 months. And so without going to lead, just so you know, you can score Scout Game's native token dev, but also earn the GoodDollar token for contributing to GoodDollar repositories. So anyway, welcome, hello developers. Let me share my screen and get started with Scout Game. All right, great. So again, Scout Game is really a way to turn open source development into play. Open source development can sometimes be a grind or can sometimes feel very isolating. And we wanted to build something that was fun, that gave you goals, so how you were doing compared to others working in the space, that built a community so it didn't feel so isolated, and that rewarded developers for their contributions. And then on the flip side, there's a Scout component. So for people who are not contributing code but are interested in the culture, are interested in supporting open source on-chain development, there's a role called the Scout. And the Scout's role is to essentially pick open source developers that they believe in, scout them, and then earn as they contribute and score points. And I'll get into all of those things. But one way to think about it from the Scout's perspective is it's like fantasy football for open source development. And then I think one way to look at it from the developer's perspective, and quite frankly, where this was born out of, was retroactive grants, like perpetual retroactive grants. And so, and just get into that a little bit, we have a lot of experience with grants at Firmverse, the company that built Scout Game. We have a grants platform. We've been selected by Optimism and Polygon and many large grant organizations to use our platform for the notice of the grants. And then as individuals, we're members of the OP Citizens House and have a bunch of experience with OP retroactive funding. And we've just been in public goods grants for about 5 years. And one of the downsides to grants is it can become a popularity contest. And so grants can be really hard. We're just trying to do the work, but you also need to have some kind of media operation or PR to get noticed. And so that's one shortcoming of grants. Another one is that it's very hard to plan your livelihood around grant, because the same grants organization that issued you a grant 6 months ago may deny you a grant 6 months from now. And so it's very hard to be an open source developer living in the grant ecosystem. And so what we built Scout Game is something you play on a weekly basis. And by I say play, if you're a developer, just do your normal work, and you earn dev token, which is a token that can be swapped on Uniswap or wherever. And so the goal was to create like consistent perpetual funding for open source developers. So now we're looking at the Scout Game interface as soon as you log in. I think we sort of default to the Scout experience. Most of our users are Scouts. You can imagine that maybe 10% of our user base are developers. You could think of them as the professional athletes. And then 90% of our user base are the Scouts, who are the fans of the community around this stuff. And so as I'm logged in here, I can see some of the top developers in open source crypto scrolling across the top who are playing Scout Game. Here I can literally see the leaderboard for the week. Now our week resets on Monday UTC, so the week just started. So you can see when you score, when you have a pull request that's merged, you score gems. And so usually by the end of the week, you'll see these numbers in the many hundreds, and then you'll see all of these people competing to see who can be at the top of the leaderboard. Given that the week just started, it's a pretty fresh board here, and we can see some people have already contributed since Monday morning UTC, which is pretty cool. Someone in the chat asked for the URL. It's scoutgame.xyz, so SCOUTGAME.xyz. I'm just going to show you, the real emphasis is on the developers, and you are rewarded for selecting good developers, and the whole thing goes around developers. But on the right side here, we have the scouts, and here we can just see our top scouts. This is for the season. A scout game season runs 13 weeks. We're currently in week 9, and then at the end of the season, everything resets. Everyone has to rescout, and for the developers, actually, experience is pretty seamless. You just keep going. But for scouts, they need to scout new players for the new season. So, time to talk about here. Maybe we can look into one of our top scouts here. You can see that she has scouted 29 developers. You can scout someone more than once, and so you can see she has 48 NFTs sold, and she scouted 29 developers, and she's made about 23,000 dev. That's $sign DEV. You can go check that out wherever you look at tokens. Scouting a developer means buying their NFT, and so let's just do that. Come back to the main screen here, and just there's 2 types of NFTs that you can scout. There's a standard card, which scores the most points, but also is the most expensive. These are done on a bonding curve. There are the quantity of 50 for each developer, and it goes up a bonding curve. So if you look at someone like Riz here, you can see he's 1,400 dev. Some other people are maybe around 600. The option to just get started for much more affordable is you grab a starter card. If you play Pokemon or Magic the Gathering, you can go like a starter deck. These are 100 dev for all of the top developers, and the downside is you're getting a much smaller pool of rewards. And so the standard cards come from a full pool of rewards each week. It's millions of dev that goes out to all of the developers and all the scouts, and then the starter cards get like a small percentage of that. It's a great way to get started. You buy some starter cards, you start to earn some debt week after week, and then you can use that debt to buy some of the full cards if you want. Just as a show you what it means to scout someone is buy their NFT, and so this is not really like friend tech or any of those kind of social, those kind of social token projects, but in some ways it's similar that you're finding a developer you like, you're buying their NFT, you have their NFT we're in season 2, so you buy their season 2 NFT, and you score points based on the team you've assembled. You can pay in all kinds of tokens, USDC on Base, on Arbitrum, Optimism, pay with ETH, of course. You can pay in the native token. I think you can't see my wallet popping up and asking to approve. Great, I've approved that, and now I can buy this developer, they'll show up in inventory, and now what happens is as they score points throughout the week, I score points as a scout. Great, so I bought him. So let me just dive into that. If we go to the developers tab, of course, we have a number of partner rewards. So I think this is important for developers. Developers, there's 2 ways to earn playing Scout Game. There is the weekly dev earnings that you earn, and then we have a number of partners who sponsor specific repos. This parcel's moving a little bit fast. I'm not quite sure why, but you can see like $2 here. We'll dive into the GoodDollar program, but there's a bunch of repositories their sponsor and specific issues that you can fix to earn some good dollar. You can see we have an arbitrum rewards, and we have Celo currently. But what I'm going to show you is the right side here is the recent activity. And so you apply to the developer to join Scout Game. You are automatically approved the first time you have a contribution approved to one of the open source repos to track. We track like 10,000 open source repos across the crypto ecosystem. So I'll show you how to check them out, but most of the major repos we're tracking. And what we're really doing is we're just checking periodically throughout the day and frequently to see have there been any PRs merged. And if there was a PR merged and that user, that developer of Scout Game, they earn points. So here we can see all of the activity from this morning. You get 1 point. You can look at these, we call them gems, but we can effectively think of them as points. You get 1 point for a commit. So maybe you're in a repo that does not require a pull request. So you just do a direct commit, you get 1 point. You get 10 points for having a PR accepted. And so the vast majority of the Scout Game economy is you fix an issue, you have a PR, it gets approved, you earn 10 points, you do that all week, and you wind up with 100 points. But we have a bonus here. You can see Carl here earn 30 points, you can see Kevin here earn 30 points. That's if you have three PRs accepted in a 1 week period, a 7-day period, you have a bonus, 30 points. So, you know, for our most prolific developers, they're going to have bonuses as they develop. We can look down this list just real quick. You can see this is Open Source Observer, which is a data set for all of crypto's open source projects. This is here we can see Eliza OS contribution. And so Eliza OS is a open source agent framework for crypto. I don't know all of these offhand. I feel like Abundance. Ancient Beast is a game you can play. You can see someone here have a commit for a Clear Wallet. Another open source observer, Carl again. So you can scroll down this list and see all the contributions. And again, it's just being kind of Monday morning for Eastern time zone or the US time zone. The game is reset because it's Monday, and then you start to see all the contributions coming in, but you can scroll back. And so developers like to just peruse this because they see all the other activity going. Of course, you can do this in GitHub, which maybe many of you do, but this is just a much more focused way of seeing like what are other people doing in crypto and what's happening. And so you can even click into the PRs or the commits. So if you're curious what's actually happening, you can look at there's a project called Craig Chain, the contract. So someone's probably Solidity here. It's not something I come about. But you can check out. You can see his PR. You can see it was merged. You can see who merged it. And so, again, it sort of gamifies the notion of open source development. And then ultimately, at the end of each week, which is Sunday night, or the start of every new week, technically, you have a claim. And this is basically an airdrop contract. And so weekly, you get your airdrop of dev. And I don't have any because I try not to buy the developer cards because that drives up the bonding curve. So it's the maker of the game. I'm trying not to be driving up the bonding curve. But what you have here, maybe if we look at, it was a week where I spoke. I don't think so. You see basically all of the dev, you have claim, and if you, for some of the partners, you can claim the partner rewards directly from this page as well. And so you, usually what you'll see here is how much dev you earned as a scout. And so, your team of developers are scoring points for you. You get a payout at the end of the month, but then also how much dev you've earned as a developer. And then I think I'll sort of wrap up Scout Game session pretty quickly, but the way that works is each week there's an allocation of dev for the week. And maybe we'll see simple numbers. Actually, it's defined in our white paper, and each week is predefined for like the next 10 years, how much debt is in each week. You can think of these as almost like airdrops, except you're earning them. So it's not like a pure random airdrop, like people are earning these tokens. But let's use the number, like it's 1 million debt for the whole week, and the developers are ranked for that week based on their activity for the week. So we see the early ranking. Again, the week just started, but if this was Sunday night, you would see that like Kevin Ackerman finished in first place, and Carl in second place, and Mike here is in fourth place. It goes down to 300th place, all of the developers, and the dev is then allocated based on how you finished. And so as a developer, if you finish first place, you get the most dev that week. If you finish second place, you get the second most dev that week, and so on. And so in that sense, it is truly a competition, because each week there's a leaderboard, and then the payout of that happens on the leaderboard. And the same thing happens on the scout side. But as a scout, you get a team of people that you collect all season long, and based on how your developers ranked that week and how you did as a scout, based on the number of points the developer scored, the payout happens in the same way. And so, if you would start today, as a scout, and you bought 1 or 2 developer cards, or you can see some people have 5 developer cards. You may rank towards the middle or the bottom, depending on how much who you scouted and how well they did. But if you're a developer, you can join week 1 and compete, because the leaderboard is weekly. And so if you're just being pretty prolific and you join for the first time this week, you can get towards the top of the leaderboard, and then playing that payout. And so let me just go through, if you come to Scout Game and you come to the info pages, this is where you learn all about Scout Game. And so it's a lot of what I've said. You can see what is Scout Game, how it works for scouts, how it works for developers. You can see the point scoring system here, because if you review your own PR, you get 2 points. If someone else reviews your PR, you get 10 points. When you get streak, you get 30 points. As a new contributor, for your first contribution, you get 100 points. But what people really like is our partner reward program. And so we work with a number of partners. They change throughout the season. And you can see a list of all the partners we worked with in the past, or currently. And these are sponsored repos. And so one way to think about them are bounties. We tend to not think of them as bounties. You can think of them as bounties, which is each partner reward program is slightly different, but you get additional dev or Celo or USDC, depending on having pull requests against these partner repos. And so, of course, we're here at GoodDollar, so I'll talk about that. But just to show the contrast, we have an arbitration program, and it's like a $30,000 USDC program that we're running on behalf of Arbitrum, where contributions actually to a number of predefined Arbitrum repos earn this reward. And so you can see we have a short list of, someone has a question, so I'd love to pause and take a question. If that's true. I'll keep going. You're welcome. Anyone's welcome to interrupt me and ask questions along the way here.
Also maybe if they want to drop questions on the chat, they are also welcome.
Awesome. So here is a defined list of Arbitrum repos. We update these regularly too. We work with the Arbitrum team to update them. And if you have a PR against any one of these repos, you earn def. And so that's the Arbitrum program. And then, of course, we love the GoodDollar program. GoodDollar more specifically has, again, a set of repos, but the issues in the repos are tagged, basic, common, rare, epic, mythic, legendary. And so your payout of GoodDollar depends on the tag that was associated with the issue. Of course, is usually the complexity of the project. So if you haven't checked this out, I would, even if nothing else I said was all that interesting to you, if you're in the Good Dollar ecosystem, you should come and check out the Good Dollar Partner Rewards program, because you can, get paid for contributing to open source, which is, again, the meta goal here is to make sure open source developers are compensated for their work. And so, I think it was a pretty great program. Dive into the repos, check out all of the issues, and see which ones pay. So the question here is this solely for devs? Is it solely for devs? Are there campaigns for non-technical people, and how do you get in touch with the team? So I think you can get in touch with me directly. My email is chris.carella@charmverse.io. You can. The best way, frankly, is if I'm Farcaster, is to just DM me on Farcaster. I'm C. Carella. I'm also C. Carella on Twitter. So you can DM me there, but Twitter DMs are, kind of its own special thing. And then I'm also happy to Telegram with people if that's your preferred way. Is it only for devs? There's two player types, but if you think about like who's putting in work and earning bounties, it's currently just for devs. If you want to support devs, there is a scout role you can play by buying their NFTs and earning alongside them. So if you know who's a really great devs in the Good Dollar ecosystem, then you can scout them and earn alongside them. I'll just tell you the main reason for this right now. We would love to open up to different types of campaigns and different types of players, but there's just this. How do we really do proof of work? And GitHub is really strong. And so that makes it really great for developers. And we try to do a number of things to make sure that the repos are not gamed. And so, repo has to have multiple contributors for starters. And then, you score a disproportionate amount of points if someone else reviews your pull request. So, what that kind of means is you contribute some code, you stage it to be accepted by the project. Some other developers on the project review your code, agree that's a valuable contribution, and then they accept it. And so that creates like a really strong mechanic here where it's very hard to game, and people are rewarded for their proof of, there's like a real proof of work component, and maybe a little bit outside the typical crypto way of thinking about proof of work, but there's some human on the project who's proving you did the work. And I guess development work is a spec, and stuff gets pushed into production. And so there is no like, I'm going to prove this just to my friend. It's like, no, you only approve it if it works and it's a spec. And so that's why currently, on the player side, I guess, is just the developers. But I'm open to chat. I would love to think about other ways to reward other work types. We've thought a lot about this, and so far GitHub is the way we prevent people from gaming the system. Let me just throw in one more thing there, which is one of the big concerns when you incentivize development into repos is that you get a lot of spam. And this has actually, if you Google this, has happened in non-crypto repositories for at least for the last decade, which is someone's going to sponsor PRs. What do you get? You get a bunch of spam into those PRs. And so we have a pretty strict spam policy where if you have your PRs rejected 3 times, then you're just suspended from the game as a developer. Now, that being said, we go through the rejections each week, and we unreject ones that are. There's a lot of legitimate reasons why your pull request gets closed, but there's also a lot of spam. And so if we go through and we determine like this is pretty legitimate, maybe it was a miscommunication with the project. Sometimes it's like someone else developed it. Well, you put a PR, someone else put a PR, and they chose yours what was good work, and we will remove it. We'll remove the strike against you. And then there's lots of reasons why a PR might get closed, but it's also mostly what I see is the PR is getting close to spam. And then I'll just maybe give you some insights into that, which is some projects separate from scouting and just in the world of crypto, when a project has an airdrop, some of them will look at their GitHub contributors and make sure GitHub contributors get allocated the airdrop, which is great on its surface. But because the airdrops are so mysterious, no one really knows who's going to do that or who is not. And so if you're airdrop farming, you're going to try to get a PR approved in as many crypto repos as you possibly can. And then what has happened in the last year is because of LLMs, people will just pull down every repo they can find, run it through something like ChatGPT, and look for contributions. And some of those contributions can be helpful. Maybe you found a bug, but that's not really what we see. Mostly what we see is people pull down every repo they can. It could be hundreds of thousands of repos. They look for typos, maybe the README has a typo in it, and then they put up a pull request to fix that typo. And it's really frustrating on the maintainer side where, most maintainers of crypto are actually writing code, and then they have to context shift because a new PR came in, and then they can tell it was a PR that was actually just a typo fix that's very low impact and happened via an LLM. And it's a frustrating kind of spam that happens in open source crypto repositories. So they generally close them. They often will say like, accept typos or something meaner than that. And so those people get banned from Scout Game usually usually it's a day because they do so many of them at once, and then the developers, the maintainers go through and they close it all. And then these kind of bad actors don't stay in the Scout Game ecosystem very long. All right, so that is kind of the broad overview of Scout Game, and then I want to go into a little bit into being a good contributor and some of the best approaches to that. So I will check quickly if there are questions, but feel free to ask questions. Great, a lot of people asking for the URL. Let me share a screen. All right, cool. So now we have sort of the second half of this presentation, and this is really just about how to be a great contributor, and then the second half of this is about being a good maintainer. But we don't have. Let's just see how this goes. I would like to focus on the contributor side because I think we have a bunch of developers here, and maintainers are people with projects trying to grow their community.
Right. Here I can step in for a second. Great. I do think it is interesting to also focus on the maintainer because of our Good Builders round 2, where we actually actively onboard projects that are actively integrating GoodDollar. We have currently 12 different projects that are receiving funding out their projects. And for those, even some of the teams might be only a solo dev, right? So in my head, for them, from the maintainer side, I could think, hey, if they have this a huge list of features that they want to see built, but there's only 2 hands to type them, maybe Scout Game for them can be an interesting funnel to maybe attract open source contributors to them.
Okay, awesome. And then there's a lot packed into this deck, and maybe I'll just go a little bit quickly for time, but I will share this deck, and you're welcome to share it around in the community. This deck is really about how you write great issues, how you find great issues to work on, how you're friendly in your PR reviews, how you the rhythm that you run your project in. Again, maintainers just having a predictable rhythm, and then just community health. So I think we're just start off with contributor essentials. I think when you're contributing, imagine that the maintainer on the other side is a very busy person who's also writing code in most cases. And in fact, maybe just like Lauren said, it's like you're actually the main person writing the code, and then they're accepting contributions. And so I think as a contributor, I think you just need to be conscious of that there's a real human on the other end, and you respect their work and their time. So do everything you can to like reduce the load on that maintainer. It'll also get your PRs approved more quickly. And so often it's like stick to the issues that are some nuance to this, but if a maintainer, if a project has issues with GitHub issues, let's say, choose one of those issues, Don't stray from the issue. Keep it pretty tight and simple. Make sure you like read the README and the contributor files, and you know, this is actually one of the biggest pain points we see is that someone comes in and they didn't read the README, they didn't read the contribution doc, and they try to have a PR, and so we're just not in the culture of the project. And then, you know, just be communicative. Where this is momentum over perfection, it's like you give up a draft PR and then ask questions about it, and just, you know, where, and if the community hangs out somewhere like Discord, be in a Discord, but if it all happens over GitHub, you know, just participate inside that GitHub. I think, you know, you want to like just choose a good first issue. A lot of times repos will have things labeled good first issue or help wanted. If you are a maintainer, a good way to get contributions is to start off with like good first issue or help wanted. You know, some of these, if they're within Scout Game ecosystem, will have Scout Game tagged to it. You can go to our partner rewards program and find more, but this is more general for just choose a good issue to work with across open source. You know, just make sure that there's a good problem statement. You understand it. You understand what the acceptance criteria is. And then often in many projects, you want to be assigned that issue. And so you might comment with your plan and your timeline. You want to like make sure this issue is still relevant and that the you know, the GitHub issues tag is still fresh. And then if it's unclear, ask questions. And so I think GitHub is a really underrated communications platform, but it's a good way to make sure you're just choosing the right thing to work on. I think some of this stuff is pretty obvious, but you want to like fork and clone that repo. You want to be able to run the project locally, which is often the first hurdle. You want to reproduce the issue. You know, you want to fix it, and then hopefully have like a test-driven development approach, and you can improve it's tested. Different projects use their own testing frameworks and their own you know, continuous integration frameworks. So again, you have to learn about culture, and then you know, update any documentation or anything that you've done that has changed core functionality. I think this is, we'll just go through this kind of quickly. It's very much similar. Before you, this is about filing issues. So then here's the other thing. One, I'm telling you, like, look at the list of issues and find something you like. But then the other approach is like, hey, I actually found the bug, or I have an idea, or, you know, I can prove this. And so in a sense, you're opening up your own issue. And I think it's key to like just search all of the existing issues and make sure that it doesn't already exist. You know, read the documentation, avoid duplicates in the issues, and then just be very clear about what you're proposing. You know, a clear title, summarize the problem. If it's a bug, the exact reproduction steps. The great bug reports are very welcome. Yeah, and here's a kind of checklist of things you want to do. Like, when did you first see it? How often does it happen? What is your OS and your software versions and your dev environment? While you're creating an issue, of course, you know, good bug reports is the more evidence the better. So if you have logs, screenshots, even a dedicated repo that can reproduce it pretty easily, that's to get your issues accepted and work on. Yeah, just make really PRs, and when you're done with your work, again, you know exactly what you did. The maintainer may be less clear exactly what you did, so communicate your PRs. One PR per issue. Start off like what changes you've made and why you made them, and then in the cases that there is a template for the project, just make sure you follow it. Allow them to have a checklist of things you need to do before they'll even consider your PR.
May I add a comment on that slide?
Great.
One, maybe you have thoughts about it. So it is I think a trade-off, but there is a developer. There can be a developer who makes one PR with 30 commits, all small additions and changes, and there is the developer who does one commit with all the changes involved. the middle line there is sometimes really hard to find, but I have experienced now reviewing a bunch of Scout game tickets or PRs. Finding the middle line there is actually really helpful towards a maintainer of being able to effectively review, especially when it comes to following up on given feedback. To actually see, hey, this was originally done, and then I give some feedback, and a new commit comes in, and then I can easily see, okay, this is what changed and fixed. Yeah, what do you have any thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough, man. You're right. You got to find the middle line. And I'll go back to that initial principle is like the maintainer is human, so try to reduce their load. But the way I've seen your repos too, when there's communication happening, I think that's great. And like I think it's exactly what you described. And I almost think that there's no too much because you just won't get it right, but you're still doing it sort of what you just described is one change at a time, feedback, addressing the feedback, and that makes it really great. I think what I'm trying to say with avoiding here is like, hey, I did issue 1, 2, and 3, it's all PR, and now you as the maintainer are like, okay, you didn't fix one issue, you fixed 3 issues. I think what you described to me is like you fix one issue, and we have a bunch of iterations on it, and we have a running test of it, and there's some communication involved, and that actually makes it easier to merge the PR.
Right, yes. But that was now more specifically than, let's say I review and there are 30 files affected and I review 50 of them with some comments. And then my 15 comments are solved by 15 separate commits. That means that I have to go in 15 separate commits and see what actually happened per commit. While it would be easier to just iterate, hey, these changes are not so big, it would be nice to just split them up in 3 or just related things or whatever, right? That is more.
Yeah, totally. I think is maintainer's preference. But yeah, you just described now you're creating more cognitive burden for someone because you've changed 15 files and 15 commits. Yeah, and then what's also talk about discussing this stuff is like every issue is different, every code base is different. So I think. Yeah, I think as a new contributor, you'll sort of just like understand the rhythm of the product and how things work. I think as an experienced developer, you just make a judgment call of the best way to do this, and think about how you would like to review it.
Yeah, that's maybe true too.
Yeah. Anyway, you create a draft CR. I think it's a little bit too prescriptive here because literally their project runs quite differently, and I would even say I don't necessarily see a lot of draft PRs. I see a lot of people go straight to PR, but you can create a draft PR to get feedback and stuff. It's a particularly active repo, and you just want to get some eyes on the work you're doing. You can start with the draft and comment on that, and then mark it as ready when it's ready. I think a lot of this stuff, I think code is one half of it, and then I think communication is the other half. And so, again, it's just about being overly communicative. If you're not sure, asking smart questions, putting everything in public so other people see your questions, maybe even answer. Working on a PR, share your progress, and just make sure when you commit it, all your tests pass. CI is green, everything's updated. And you've done everything right. So here's a little quick guide. I'll share this talking with people if they're interested. But again, everything we just discussed, right? It's like prepare for it, learn the culture and the code base, investigate, be able to reproduce the issues and understand it, document your changes, submit your code, and then have your PR review process. All right, now I'll get to the second half of this, which is the maintainer playbook. And so everything I just talked about is super relevant to the maintainer, and you can imagine yourself on the other side. But this is about really having some community leadership around your repos. And just kind of sums it up, which is like make it easy to contribute, have great issues, have a predictable rhythm. Have your bar of quality, have good security defaults and still trust, and then make it sustainable with regular releases, some sort of governance process, if you will, and funding strategies. So maybe it could be Scout Game, or there's a lot of different funding strategies here, grants, or maybe just ultimately short to hire people for your project depending on the size and scope of it. You can set up a great repo from the start to make it easy to contribute and for people to understand. And these are, I call it the foundation here. You want to read me so people can understand the project and get it up and running locally. So there's a quick start. Your contribution guide. We actually have a contribution guide on Scout Game if you want to go into the info and find one if you just want to quickly create one. Maybe start with that one, ChatGPT, come up with your own contribution guide, or maybe you have your own way you want people to contribute. So that's usually really helpful. Code of conduct, we don't see this in every repo, but code of conduct can be a healthy way to have some community standards. You can have the security reporting process you want, and then I think super important is to have your license in there. And of course, we're talking about open source development, so I assume it's one of the many open source licenses, so it matters, and even the license you choose matters. And then let me ask, I see lots of hand up, so let me defer.
Oh, I was waiting.
Oh,
I was not in a hurry. Anyway, I think what could also maybe be added here is researching and figuring out how to best write your agents.md. What I have noticed, what I have noticed so far is also that some of the Scout contributors do use AI agents, and you just you start to see some patterns where you think, yeah, this is an AI agent, Codex or whatever, that has written the code. Facilitating this, because it will end up in any repository, and any developer will at some point use an AI agent to write the code for them. Having your repository set up with an agents.md is actually maybe useful, so that you can have more effective results while the AI agent is doing the work.
Absolutely great, killer recommendation. I'll add it to the slide as things I'm done. But yeah, we're seeing that it's much more common. Maybe a collabs.md file or an agents.md file, or in some cases multiple agents.md file. Super helpful, super helpful. People, that's a whole other part where people can start to contribute changes to it. If you have the agent file public in your repo, yeah, that's such a great point and oversight here. Then I'll just add on top of that, having some standardized tools like your issues or pull request templates, having a consistent labeling system of your issues, and then maybe there's some way to automate your review assignments, or again, in the world of AI, you can have a lot of people have these whatever Google Copilot, or there's any LLM-based PR reviews happen before the human review. I think you just want to think about this as talking about measuring the rhythm, because people are now counting on you, and we do sometimes see, I see the biggest failure, especially from a Scout Game perspective, is that maintainers aren't quick at reviewing. They'll wind up reviewing something literally 3 weeks later, and maybe it's not relevant anymore. Maybe they're asking for a change 3 weeks later, and the developer never comes back. Right, and so as much as I say, make it easy for the maintainer, I think as a maintainer, make it easy for contributors. You want contributors, you want to decentralize your project and have many hands working on it. So you just want to check your PRs pretty regularly. I have here a 24 to 48-hour response time, even if it's a quick comment. Just let people know that their work is being, maybe a really busy week. And you can't get to it in 48 hours, or it's a big PR, and you need some time. Please comment and let them know, hey, I'm looking at this. Thanks for the contribution. I think you always want to have some good first issues in your repo and your issues. Make it really easy for people to get started as they get completed. Find new issues to add. Make it easy for people to get started. Again, some consistency, and then get people learning, have empathy, when their PRs fail. And so you ask for change, and a couple of days go by, there's no change. Maybe a week goes by, there's no change. You want to just message them and say like, hey, we used to work on this, rather than people can find it very abrupt if their PRs just close without a message. So if you're trying to build community on top of building software here. I'll be frank with a little bit outside of my expertise here, but I think you just want to just think through how you want other people to contribute. Think through what you're going to merge and what you're going to expect, and you can put this in a lot of your contributor docs. I think that's what I see this in crypto is like the crypto is like very serious, and so you certainly do want security reporting. You want to find how people report security issues. You may have, like every group, every project is different, so you may want to have automated tools that help find security issues or do the PRs. Some people don't do that. There's overhead, there's much cost with this stuff. But use like good security policies, get good reportings. You don't really, especially in an open source project, keep secrets. You want to like have the security reports out open. If it's a really serious security report, I would direct you to other sources of how to manage that. But if something's wrong, a good bad approach is trying to keep secret about it. A good approach is to fix it, we'll ask the community to help fix it. There's build a welcoming community. I think this is like your own, the size of your project and your own personal preference. But have code conduct, or at least make sure people are being civil in the discussions. Have public discussions. Maybe it's your Discord. Maybe you're using GitHub, a GitHub-based discussion system. Celebrate contributions. Celebrate your non-code developers. Celebrate people doing documentation. Celebrate designers. Celebrate the engineers too. I will say, like, one of the reasons we built Scout Game is to celebrate engineers in open source, where a lot of times you do a lot of work and you don't get a lot of recognition. And that's part of it, is people sort of endorsing you or betting on you, not that believing in you. And our goal is to make open source developers famous to non-open source developers by being like, oh, this person's a really good person to scout because they're just a beast in their contributions. So that's what we're doing on the Scout Game side, but I think you're in a community, in a project, a team, and so all of us in the best practices hold here. So I just a wrapping side here. You're a contributor. You can find work to work on in Scout Game. Find issues you're interested in, care about, you think you can do a good job. Outside of Scout Game, if you're just interested in a project, maybe you hear a new project gets a grant, then go check out the repo and figure out. And then I think if you're a maintainer, go look through this deck and think about building your community and make it really easy for people to contribute, make it feel really good when they do contribute. Yeah, cool. I'll talk to that a lot. Part 1, Scout Game. Part 2, being an open source contributor. Part 3, being a maintainer. And then what I don't have on the slides are my contact info. I'd be happy to talk to anyone about any of these three. Things, and they're very overlapping, by the way. For any of these topics, I'd love to tell you more, and then I'll give this deck to a GoodDollar team as a takeaway that they share, and I would love feedback on that. I think open source is collaboration, and so even as I tell you some best practices, I'm interested in feedback and make sure that we have additional best practices. I think the agents MV files are such a great example of that. So I'll pause. I'll say thank you. Thank you to everyone who's here and everyone who's watching on YouTube later. And thank you to GoodDollar for having me. And thank you for having a partner rewards program in Scout Game and celebrating open source together.
Thank you, Chris, very much for for this presentation and sharing all your knowledge with us. It has been great. If anyone has any questions or want to say anything before we wrap up, now is the moment.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I wanted to ask, I wrote a comment that because I have a repository that I think is open source and I understand it has issues, it has contributing, so I would like to propose it for a Scout game. So I sent in the message what should I have to do?
Yeah, so contact me and then we'll have our team review it. I just in the chat, I dropped in my email, it's chris.carella, that's chris.carella @farmverse.io. Contact me on any platform you can find me on. You see Carella basically everywhere from Telegram to Twitter to WordPress, and then our team will review it. And then one of our we want to include open source projects, so we're very open to it, and we just want to make sure that other people are contributing, and that it's not like your personal homepage, and then you're scoring points because you're updating your homepage every day. So we're trying to like balance the repo with the integrity of the game, but we're very open to it. So just contact me and let me know. We want to move towards a decentralized process where anyone who's a developer in Scout game can give a thumbs up or a down. Anyone can propose a repo, and then everyone can give a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and then we have an algorithm that automatically approves it. But for the time being, I am kind of the maintainer of the master list. So contact me and we'll see what we're working on.
All right. I don't know if I can come in now.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. So this is Anthony from it's a community that onboards students with the blockchain ecosystem. We have over 5,000 students who bought in to learn more about blockchain, and we have over 100 developers who don't even know that this Scout game opportunity do exist. So I'm thinking, I already sent a message on Twitter as Luke Anthony A. I'm thinking how we could maybe contact to collaborate, even towards our upcoming conference happening in November.
Yeah, fantastic. Just reach out to me and let's talk. I want to do these presentations, which can be helpful. There's other ways to collaborate, like maybe there's a hackathon component we can get involved in. But yeah, I love developers and groups of developers and university groups of developers. Especially crypto, I feel like university developers are like the future. So yeah, I'll look for your message and let's talk.
Okay. It seems that there's no more questions or in the chat either. Okay, so thank you very much for joining and for everyone to join. And yeah, see you next time.
All right, awesome. I appreciate everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Chris. Again.
Thanks for your time, Chris.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers, y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.